Good morning, good day, good afternoon, good night. Wherever and whenever you're listening to this, welcome to the Bitaxe Townhall, your dose of getting news about Bitaxe, open source mining in general, and whatever flies by. I'm your host, One Clue, and Scott is with me on the stage here. Hey, Scott.
Yo, I'm really impressed how your voice switched into like radio mode when you
I'm
started the recording. So
I'm
good
sorry
to
about
good to
that.
be here.
It's really
Thanks for
good to
setting
be
this
here.
up.
And thanks for having me, of being a host of this town hall. Sorry if there was a little bit of noise in the background. I'm just opening my Vino because I need some Vino for that. We are sitting at the town hall number 35. And we just spoke about this 2 seconds ago. This is almost the 1 year anniversary. The first ever Bitaxe Town Hall was published on the 27th of May 2024. So now, basically, 1 year further, and we're still there. We're not stopping with that.
We're not stopping.
We are not stopping. You can't stop us. So it's good to be here, and we do have obviously a couple of topics that we want to speak about. As always, we want to give you a little bit of news all around of what's happening in the scene, especially with the software, because the BitX is there hardware-wise. There are always coming new revisions and new stuff, but the software is evolving constantly, and constantly a new contributors coming out of nowhere into the scene and helping this community out, helping open source out and making the world just a better place, which is so amazing to see. And that's obviously the reason why I like to talk about the software that we do have, the ESP miner and all the other bits and pieces that we do have on all the repositories. But before we do that, Scott, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. It's starting to get hot around here. I think summer's going to happen this time, and yeah, it feels good. I'm doing good. I've got a lot of hardware projects going on right now, so it's very exciting. And as usual, there's the sort of what awesome project do I focus on at any given time is my main problem, and that's not a bad problem to have.
I think we need to clone you.
Yeah, can we do that now? We can probably do that now, right? Like, is that something Chat
Probably.
GPT can do?
Oh, maybe. I don't really know, but it would be nice to do because then I could work my day job and do all the open source development as well. Why not? Yeah. Yes, git clone. That's it.
Git git clone want clue
Mm. Does it work?
into the current working directory.
Ooh, maybe you need to fork it.
Yeah, that's
Anyway,
true.
some weird developer
Is it
jokes
open
here.
source? I mean, can we just do that? Like, are you allowed to just fork want clue and
I don't know.
modify it? And
Maybe I need to ask for funding before I open source it.
that's not a good idea. That'll never work.
Well,
All right.
no.
Maybe we should talk about that.
All right. So, what's going on? What's brewing? Basically, first thing that I want to make sure, seeing IC Tech, you're posting too quick in the chat. I do see that. Um, we
Did he
always
get
do.
booted for posting too quick?
He probably got muted. Yeah. Let me. Can you unmute him while I'm talking? That would be nice.
I can try.
Let's
Let's
see.
see.
So, first things first, this town hall here is, as usual, your place for a couple of news and things to get more information about. But the most important thing about the town hall and why we do have them is that you, as being in the audience, have the ability to come up on the stage if you like to do so. Be cautious about it because we do record these town halls and it gets uploaded later on. So, for those people who are not able to join into this Discord or not willing to or whatever, or want to just listen to it later on because of time thingies, that's the reason why we do upload them. But the town halls is here for you to come in and ask for anything. Like if you do have any issues with your BitX or if anything is going wrong or you want to understand something fundamental about Bitcoin mining, this is your place to shine and ask questions because we want to incentivize everybody of getting the knowledge and getting as much as the open source knowledge that we do have and that we do provide here as possible. So with that, obviously, for everybody who's listening to this later on, thanks for tuning in here. And if you haven't checked out the Discord server, which is the Open Source Miners United community's preferred platform that we do use, you can figure that out under discord.gg/osmu, as well as for everybody who's in the audience and who's listening later on. If you do want to get a little bit more knowledge about all of these projects, or you want to get like a rough overview, check out osmu.wiki. It's a wiki page for a brief overview of projects. If I'm not mistaken, all of the projects that we do have are listed on it there. We do have plenty of member projects, and it's just insane. But anyway.
It is insane. There's some good stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely. We try to be as nice as possible with all these channels, but sometimes these channels just they fall a little bit in their appearance in terms of people are busy. And that's beautiful and sad at the same time, because you do know, like, sometimes people are just too busy to work on their open source stuff, and then it takes a little bit of time before they can come back and develop or update anything about it. So that's the sad part. But the good part is it's obviously open source, because this Discord server here is Open Source Miners United from naming scheme here. And we kind of also slip or let people slid in here that try to promote their closed source stuff. But we kind of try to change course here now and basically, I'd say not ban, but kick off these people out. No, that's also the wrong term. We should guide them into the right direction, which is open source. That's what we do care about here.
Yeah, we had a good conversation, I think, about this before the town hall, and it was, I think the gist of it was that obviously with these projects, there are accessories that you can make, and the license doesn't say that accessories have to be open source. And in fact, that is totally fine to make closed source accessory products for the Bitaxe or other open source projects. I would think that that's encouraged. In fact, I would encourage you to open source it. I think that is a valuable thing to do, but it's not a requirement. The license does not require it. So, if you're not modifying the Bitaxe directly, you don't have to open source your project. And several people have done that, and that's totally fine. But the problem, I think, and where some of the unhappy folks come from, is that it is not appropriate, and I remind people about this a lot, it is not appropriate to post about that on the OSMU Discord, right? Like, here and there mentioning it, okay, that's fine, but sort of repeated posts, promoting it and stuff, it's just not appropriate for this forum, because we're about open source mining stuff. And so, we're not the admin, the mods and stuff, we're not always here all the time. Also, sometimes it's really hard to tell, people say like, I intend to open source it, but it's not yet, things like that. And so there's no like hard and fast way to know, is it immediately appropriate for posting on OSMU? But, I'd like to think that we can nicely tell people when it is no longer appropriate for here. So I don't know. I guess I'm making a plea for help from you all in just, let's keep it open source. That's why I think, that's in the name of the chat room. So hopefully if people are here, they're here for open source stuff. So let's keep it open source.
That's what we do care about here, because it's the only thing that matters. It's the ethos of Bitcoin. It has been introduced on the MIT license, which allows you to basically do whatever you want with it. And hey, we saw plenty of shitcoins, but I'm sorry, I'm not there for them. I'm just here for Bitcoin.
Yes, right. We get plenty of shitcoins. This server doesn't have a very specific Bitcoin only name or anything like that. But I think you'll find that a lot of people here are Bitcoin only due to decentralization and stuff. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a Bitcoin focused chat room.
I mean,
So
we do have the first question basically in the chat by Sia Alex, who's asking, is there any source where he could source some BM1370 chips at a reasonable price? I mean, I don't know out of my thoughts right now if any of the resellers of Bitaxe resellers is actually also reselling the bare chip itself. I don't know that, but I do know
I
that.
believe I heard PlebSource does. Where Marshall, did he leave already? Hopefully his finger didn't like come
Solo Mining
disattached. I
GE
think he
said
left.
he does.
Solo mining. Okay. All right. So
Interesting.
we got a couple people. Yeah. Solomining.de. That's the website right there. So if you're in Europe, I think that's probably your go-to spot. If you're in the US, check out plebsource.com. I believe they have them as well.
I mean, that's quite interesting because so far I'm mostly working on older models for the things that I developed on or that I try to work on with. And then I usually do source them directly from China, which is, yeah, it does have a little bit of a taste to it, but I mean, that's nice. I didn't know that. So we do have a couple of resellers. Nice. So we should probably.
Yeah, they're breaking down. I believe both the sellers that we mentioned are also Bitaxe manufacturers. So they're involved in the process of breaking down Antminers, desoldering the chips, and selling extras to the community, which is badass. I really appreciate people doing that. In case you're not aware, we have a fucked up supply chain with these chips because Bitmain does not sell them directly. You can get them from China. You can get new ones from China, but they're very expensive. So a lot of people aren't going to be happy with that.
One funny thing is they do teach you or they do train you in like how to repair Antminers. They do have these very expensive Antminer courses. I'm not really sure if they actually sell you then now the chips as well. Or if they say, well, you get like this portion of chips each month, but not any more or any less. I don't. Do we have any information about this process?
I have heard from some people directly involved in this, and they can pipe up if they want to talk about it. But I have heard that if you become a Bitmain authorized repair center, meaning you go through their training and you're doing repairs, that they will sell you new chips for doing repairs with. From what I hear, they're also not very cheap, and you can't buy lots of them. Like they're not selling you reels.
So now there's the interesting part. We do know for sure in the process of creating these hashboards, there is some sort of a binning process. And what I do mean by that is like you cannot just stick 20 chips in a row and chain them together and expect them to work. You need to make sure that they do, if you use multiple voltage domains, you need to make sure that they do align in a couple of criterias. So I'm wondering if you do have like a hashboard with one broken chip, how do they make sure it is not fucking up the voltage domain?
That was a good question. I see Vapes is typing. He knows the answer to this.
It's an interesting one. Let's see. So that's one thing that I'm really interested in because we've created the Bitaxe Hex, which does feature like 6 chips, but I think like 1 or 2 resellers are the only ones who are actually producing them. They're not going that well as the usual Bitaxe. But the biggest issue with the Hex was getting the domains into a right place where all the chips align perfectly and work together in a chain where it is reasonable to put them into 2 different or 3 different voltage domains. So I always wondered.
I noticed that absolutely when I was making the Ember 1, which has 12 chips out of the J Pro. Like it would be widely out of balance if I used chips that had different bins. And you can see like a bin, like some sort of indication on the front of the chip what the bin is.
But wait.
And initially when I put it together,
stop there. I saw lately a S21 Pro hashboard. The first 2 rows were the BS chips, And all the chips after that on the same voltage domain were PA.
Yes, so they're not there's like compatible voltage domains. I definitely ran into that because I ordered, I think, 24 brand new BM1362s from China from NBTC, and they sent me a bunch of different ones, like a bunch of different ones. And I noticed that some of them worked together and matched, and other ones definitely did not. So I kind of had to experimentally determine that. Vape says they do have bins, usually bin 1 to bin 5. The boards from the factory all come with bin chips. However, when replacing the chips that burn out, it is advised to use similar bin chips. However, you can mix bins, but performance isn't guaranteed.
Yeah, that's what I do
So
expect from it.
how do you tell?
So if you
Like if
do
I'm
have
looking at a board,
if you do have a board, and
yeah,
you're
how do I tell
working
what bin I need?
I mean, I do think if you work on a voltage domain which only has like PA chips in it, and you replace it with a PA chip, it's probably gonna be fine.
That's true, but
He's searching for a picture. Okay, that's nice.
Nice. This is awesome.
Also,
Yeah,
the S21 Pro hashboard or the S21 Pro only has 159 A6. 95? I'm sorry.
No, it has 65. It has 65 chips per board and
195.
3 boards. So that is 195. Yes.
Yeah. 195.
But the
there we go.
S21 XP has more chips, I believe.
So developer goes writing that the hashboard also does have bin numbers. So they also bin like all the chains.
I mean, I think you need to bin the whole chain, right?
Yeah,
they need to be all from compatible bins at least.
By the way, I just wanted to mention this here. It's absolutely amazing to see all of you guys here in the audience. We do see people joining in here that have been here before, and we do see new people in here. But having 59 people in the audience, amazing. That's probably a record here.
91 chips per board.
On the S21 XP.
Yeah, so that's 273.
Also, let me quickly answer another question. We get a question from Josie Chaos. Is CK open source? Yes, CK Pool is open source. He does have a big Bitbucket. He posted it multiple times on Twitter, where the link of his Bitbucket. So CK Pool, the software for that is open source. And by the way, the dashboard that you do see, the solostats.ckpool.org webpage, is designed by MRV777 out of this community here, and it's also open source. So that's really amazing.
So maybe there's some decoder ring from this label on the hashboard to like what bin that is. Oh, I see PA down there in the lower right corner. I wonder if that's BC. Yeah, there's got to be something in there that you can decode into what bin that the board is using.
Probably. I mean, it's kind of hard to tell. And the best part about it is that, okay, let's see. So Websolid posted a picture of a hashboard and wrote, you can see it, and this is a S19 Pro board. But for the little white label that has the QR code, has the bin written in plain text like bin 4. Interesting. So if you do scan that and decode the QR code, you get like plain text of it.
But the chips don't say bin 4 on them. So how do you know what chips are in bin 4?
The entire hashboard is bin 4. So if you do try to replace it, you need to replace it with a hashboard with the bin 4.
But like, let's say I have a hashboard. It says bin 4 on it. Some of the chips are dead. I need to replace them. Mm-hmm. How do I know what chips are in bin 4?
That's a good question. And probably that's in the sheet that Antminer provides to the repair guide.
Yeah, that's right. That's the secret, that you have to be a manufacturer to get, or a authorized
It's
repair.
A little bit unfortunate, and that's always the thing. Like, I do state whenever I do go somewhere and explain to them what the Bitaxe project is, what it means to me, and why it even exists. It's like, sure, we do say the Bitaxe is the world's first open source Bitcoin miner, which is technically not true, because there was one open source Bitcoin miner before the Bitaxe, back in 2014, 15, something like that, but it never reached the hype that the Bitaxe does, and therefore it died, and nothing was.
What one was that?
It was based on the Bitfury AC chip.
Like the hardware was open source?
Yes, the hardware was open source, everything. But
Nice.
not the Bitfury chip, if I'm not mistaken. So same place at what we are as in. And that's what I always tell the people, like, well, the Bitaxe is technically open source. We do have all the files and all the software and so published. We do know all the things that we do know as well about all these components is published. But obviously the chip itself, it's proprietary hardware, we don't exactly know. And unless that happens, it is only 99% open source. But it's still better than what else is out there. Like, you can verify the software if you like to. So if you don't trust us, you just go over to GitHub and you take a look on it. If you think we did some stupid stuff on the PCB itself, well, then you just go on GitHub, verify it. And if you're a cool kid, you open up a PR request and say, hey, Scott, you're stupid. Please change this bug on the Bitaxe board. And then we do it. And everybody benefits.
Lots of people have done that. Much appreciated. Please.
Josie, I'm not reading that. I'm just saying, yes, it's closed source.
And sketchy.
Okay. We need to dive into this topic. Just 15 seconds. There are a couple of nerd miners out there and nerd miner derivatives. And it's cool to see a couple of people are improving the general hash rate of these kilo hash devices. Still, it's in a playable range. Like, the expectation that you will find a block with a nerd miner is mathematically zero. Not entirely zero, but very, very close to it. And a couple of people improved the software to increase the hash rate. But what was happening lately was there are a couple of rewriters or companies out there that put into the firmware of their modified node miner a license so that it does not work without a license. And then I was looking into that. I was like, well, what the fuck is going on there? I mean, that's totally fine. The nerd miner project by BitMaker is published under the MIT license, which allows you to do whatever you want with it. So that's totally fine. You can do whatever you want with it. And we're not judging about that. But what we are judging about is what happened after that. I got sent over a device. I was looking into it and I was like, well, something doesn't add up. Why does have a ESP32, not the S3, higher hash rate than an ESP32 S3 model? So we're talking about a dual core design does have less hash rate than a single core design. I was like, well, that's a little bit weird, right? So what I did was pretty simple. I just looked into the Stratum messages that are sent over when you do mine, and we quickly figured out, well, this fucking device is a scam. Why? Because it was sending over the same answer multiple times. It was sending the same share that it mined multiple times. Hence, it showed you higher hash rate on the screen. You thought you're a cool kid and you got more hash rate than your bro next to you. But, well, you didn't. You just scammed the hash rate. It's unfortunate.
And they were charging for this firmware, right? Like, you had to pay some sort of license or something to use this firmware?
Some of these companies, or let's say all of these companies that are charging a license for that, some of these software rewrites are legit and they do produce the hash rate that they're showing. Everything below 350 kilo hash so far that I have taken a look on, and I have not taken a look on all these devices, so do your own research, please. Some of them are legit. They do produce up to 300 kilo hashes with an ESP32, which is insane. And I'm bowing in front of the developer who did that. But for all the other devices that do say, well, we got like 1,000 kilo hashes on your ESP32, but your ESP32 S3 only has 200 kilo hashes, well, that sounds sketchy. And it turns out it was. I think that's enough of it. It's a little bit more than 15 seconds, but out of my heart, I needed to express this because modifying a firmware that is open source is one thing. If it's MIT, I don't even care, because you can do with whatever you want with it. But if you now charge people and you scam them, I do have the obligation to sue you, and I will.
I mean, it's a good advertisement for open source software, like, especially with this stuff. You know, if it's closed source and they can't publish the source, like, what are they trying to hide?
I mean, in the end, if you do modify a firmware that is released under the MIT license, and you just basically put in your license server because you modified a beautiful screen or something like that, well, yeah, go for it, do it, whatever. And you don't need to publish it because it's MIT licensed. It's totally fine. But don't do sketchy shit. And if so, don't be freaking stupid and just send over the same share multiple times. Come up with something that is intelligent, and don't be like a bitch. I'm sorry, but no.
Well, also, I mean, why can't you release it open source?
I don't know. Maybe. I
mean, that's the question, right? Like, why aren't you? Are you just greedy, or
probably
are you doing something sketchy? Like, we have no way to know. We just have to kind of trust you, bro, which is not a super good way to operate.
I do know. I have already plans for the 1st of April next year. Some good fool jokes there.
All right.
Bitaxe is going.
Well, we got a little bit of time for that.
Well, no. I mean, in the end, everything is fine as long as you do it with a little bit of knowledge and the intention of knowing what you're doing. But if you do sell a product, or if you do modify something and you don't know what you're doing, either you're stupid and you need to be called out, or you're fucking stupid and you need to get a little bit of slap. I'm sorry, but that's... I don't see any other reasonable way why you would do that. And I don't want to get too emotional about that, so I think it's a good idea to switch over. We've said what we want to say, that you should do a little bit of your own research on it. Don't trust anything that you do here online. If it sounds too good to be true, it's probably a scam. So what else? I said that these town halls are usually for you, and I always mean that. So if you do have any questions, like all the people that are doing that already in the town hall chat, feel free to do so. If you want to come up on stage and have a chat with us, you can raise your hand and I'll make sure to bring you up on the stage, but be aware about the fact that these town halls are recorded. And with that, I think we can switch over a little bit into the foreseeable future of the ESP miner. Lately, I was reading a little bit on X, and I was seeing that a couple of people are reporting that with the latest firmware version 2.7.1, they do see some thermal issues, which is an interesting topic because so far over the course of the last 2 years, every third or fourth release that we did, there were always people saying they have thermal issues, which is really interesting.
It is interesting, especially if there was no changes, no thermal related changes.
We do have developer Algo who want to come up on stage.
Let's get him up on stage.
I tried. Let's see if he accepts it. So yeah, what I wanted to say about that is, like, it's interesting to see that a couple of releases seem to increase the thermal issue or the thermal performance, and some others, which I think is not the case. It was not like that I was seeing the thermal issue being pushed hard on X or on any other platforms, but it's like bits and pieces. Sometimes like one or two people are like, hey, I updated and now my Bitaxe is like 10 degrees hotter. Well, one thing that you need to understand about the Bitaxe is this device is running and it does have a temperature. And now you upgrade it to the version 2.7.0 or 2.7.1, which introduces a new automatic fan control called the PID controller, which tries to align the temperature of the ASIC to a specific Celsius degree that you set in the web UI, which I think is a nice feature, but it also brings
Very
in
nice
one
feature.
issue. If your device is already hot, let's say like 55, 60 degrees Celsius, and now you updated the firmware, it is rebooting. What the Bitaxe will do, the PID controller, and I definitely need to modify this again a little bit, is it tries to firstly slowly come up and then gradually over the time account for the temperature that you want to have on your chip. If your thermal performance, because your heatsink is a shitty one or not properly aligned, is now not dispensing enough heat that can be cooled by a fan, it becomes an issue because the fan curve is slow. And I try to write it that way because if you crank it up too quick, it could be that your PID controller is now trying to reach 60 degrees Celsius, but it's going up and down, and now you're hearing your fan going winding up and winding down, winding up, winding down. You don't want to do that. So that's the reason why this device or why this controller is slowly increasing in the speed while it's trying to maintain the performance. But back to the point. So you updated your Bitaxe to the latest firmware, and now you do see some overheat issues or in general a little bit more heat. What I would recommend you to do is to update it, cool it down like 2 to 5 minutes maybe, and then start it up again. Give the PID controller a little bit of time to work until I fixed it, or make sure that it spins up quicker but doesn't be shitty in the end. I need to think about that.
Is this seems like it's a PID tuning issue, right? I mean, isn't that one of those like it's the P, I think, right? That controls how fast
Yeah.
it ramps up.
Basically, it is how hard it is trying to align or correct the temperature issue, because the PID controller is trying to read the temperature and you have a set target. And if you do have an error correction that you want to align for, you either increase or decrease the fan control. And I set it to 1.8 seconds of reading the temperature, or 1.8 milliseconds or something like that. It can be improved on a couple of things. What you don't want to achieve in the end is having a fan that is spinning up and down all the time and being completely
Yeah.
noisy. So bear with me. I try to do my best on that.
Developer Algo 222, what's up, man?
Nothing much. How are you guys doing, man?
We're doing good.
Yeah. Actually, one clue just explained what I really wanted to mention about the PID issue and the fan control as concerns the thermals. What I noticed in among the tests that I was doing is that when you update to 2.7, you'd get that fan spinning up and down for a while before it actually settles down. So
Yeah.
he explained it really well as to what was happening in terms of the fan spinning and you hitting the thermal thresholds for that. I've seen a lot of overheats when I'm actually updating the firmware for the board the first time. It will come up and go straight away to overheat. I let it cool down for a few minutes, and then when I power it up again, it's fine.
Yeah, and that issue has been fixed with 2.7.1 because Ben was mentioning this to me. I was not thinking about the initial startup sequence. So in the initial startup sequence, because the temperature reading from the ASIC is -1 because there is no temperature while you have not initialized the ASIC, it might cause your heatsink to heat up and therefore your device to heat up in general, but the fan was not spinning because it wasn't reading any temperature. So now I changed this, so the fan is always spinning at 70% if there is no temperature to be read.
Okay.
Why wouldn't we want to do 100%? Like anytime that you cannot read the temperature, wouldn't we want to just default to max fan?
I mean, if you cannot read the temperature while you're running with it, it might be an issue. And then we're going probably into the power fault or the overheat mode anyway, which will set the fan speed to 100% anyway. So this was only on the setup sequence.
Okay.
And on the setup sequence, you increase you set up the ASIC in it, and therefore the ASIC spins up and gradually takes more power, therefore produces more heat. So in this one, you don't need 100%, but on overheat, you definitely need 100%.
I feel like when we're initializing the ASIC, it might be good to just play it safe and put it at 100% always, with the idea being that that's not going to happen that often. Like if you're doing it right, you shouldn't be initializing the ASIC very often.
Pardon, can you repeat that again, please?
I just saying, I don't think there's much of a downside to having the fan at 100% while we're initializing the ASIC.
No, I was just like thinking about it, and I was like, I have a couple of these cheap China fans, and at 100%, they're so noisy. I don't want to hear that.
It's just we're not. I mean, well, you and I are because we're developing this, but normally people aren't going to be hearing that because their Bitaxe isn't going to be restarting.
Leroy Jenkins is right, and once we can vary the hash rate without reboot, we can just set a static fan and the PID, the hash rate. That's quite a... we can vary the hash rate without a reboot already. The function for that is already implemented for several releases. You can modify, you can adjust your frequency and your voltage on the go. You don't need to reboot your device for that any longer since 5 releases or 6 releases.
Is that just over the API, or can you do it from XOS as well?
You can do it from XOS as well, and from the API. It's a patch. It's an X patch.
There you go, Leroy Jenkins. Give it a try.
Yeah, he said cool. He's been out of the loop for a while. Sorry. No, totally. I haven't seen you for a while, but it's good to see you back in here. Love you, dude.
Yeah, likewise. Doing some cool stuff.
We are still there. We're not stopping. All right. I'm sometimes too much hyping this community. We are still in the beginning. It's with Bitcoin in general. Like, there's this phrase of we are still in the beginning after 16 years. Let's see where we will be in 16 years.
So, option OXFOXXO dash square has been contributing a lot lately. Lots of UI stuff, right?
Yes.
Just shout out to you. You've been doing some fantastic work with the API, tooltips. I don't know. I see your very unique name come up on GitHub a lot. Fox. Okay, I see it now. OX Fox O. Cool.
All right, let's dive a little bit into what are the upcoming changes. So let me quickly open up the repo and give you a quick overview about the milestone. Because what we're doing lately is I'm setting up milestones for all the releases, and I explained this in the last town hall as well. Releases are now under the versioning of the second digit. We do have 3 digits. We have the first one, which is currently 2, which will not change until we move over to ESP minor 3, which will probably happen in the next 5 years. That's a good estimation. And then the second digit, that is for monthly releases. So every month, this digit will increase by 1. And the third digit is for hotfixes or bug fixes that need to go immediately into the master branch. We came up with this idea because previously it was a little bit messed up, and still it is a little bit messed up with a couple of things. But while these people that do have control over the ESP miner repository and can contribute and push stuff and so on, we're getting used to it. So it's getting in a better state, and it takes a little bit of time. But yeah, the third digit is only for hotfixes. So you will only see this increase when there is any sort of hotfix. For example, the version 2.7.1, where the 1 was the increase. got out there because I quickly fixed the PID controller to also make sure while you're initializing your ASIC, the fan is spinning. This was needed because let's say you're a manufacturer and you're flashing the device and it's overheating. Like, no, that's not a good thing to have. You need to make sure that's not happening. And that's the reason why this hotfix got out there. But the next one will be the version 2.8.0. And we already have a couple of things implemented for it. For example, if you do have a pay to Taproot address as your Bitcoin address that you do use for your mining on solo mining or pool mining or whatever, then there was the issue that this was not been set correctly or not been displayed correctly in the front end, especially if you do modify the scale of your web browser or your phone browser or whatever. Then this was going out of the container. So this is a design fix. It has been fixed, which is nice, as well as there is now on the API the expected hash rate. And there is also a scientific notification for the session best difficulty, which does give you a little bit more of a overview of what's happening with your chip count and so on. I don't want to dive too deeply into that because these town halls are just for the general sake of what's happening. The biggest thing that got implemented and is currently under review, or under testing, not review, is that we have moved over to a different sort of how we do internally use naming schemes. Previously, we do have these different models like the Bitaxe Max, the Ultra, the Gamma, the Supra, the Hex, the Supra Hex, and so on. It gets a little bit convoluted if you do have these many model names. So that got changed. And now we do use the chips and a identifier to that in a more reasonable way. So Mutatrum, really huge thanks to you, did a ton of work. It took me probably 3 weeks to go over all of his changes, but I did it. Other people did it as well, and that's really nice. So with that, we hopefully have a more cleaner code base, which will likely improve how many developers we do attract into this scene, which will then for benefit everybody who is in this community. There are also other things. For example, I lightly shared a Bitaxe with a bigger screen. I'm still working on it. I do have a PR for it coming up probably next week to implement other screens as well. So in the foreseeable future, you will be able to update your screen of the Bitaxe to a different one. It takes time to add more screens to it, but we're getting into the right direction here. There are plenty of open issues that still need to be taken a look at. We have a couple of race conditions, as well as a couple other things. Yeah, I think for update-wise on what's happening and what has happened so far, that's a good overview. Let me go back into Discord here and let's take a look on what's going on here in the chat.
What do you think? And I know we talked about this before, and I don't remember what happened, but what do you think about showing the current pool difficulty in AXOS?
I mean, that's a thing. If you do start mining to public pool, it starts with a pool difficulty of 1024. And then it gradually adjusts depending on the amount of shares that you're sending. That's how this adjustable difficulty works with pool mining or with connecting to a Stratum server that does have this feature. It could be a nice thing. I just don't know if this is actually needed. Maybe it could be needed because you bring an idea into my mind, because we do have so many people that are coming up and like, I do have two big Bitaxes on different pools and they do have different amounts of shares. Why is that? Something is wrong with my Bitaxe.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I see a lot of that, like this one Bitaxe is not sending very many shares, and I think most of the time it's because the pool difficulty is higher on that one, but maybe not. Maybe it's a problem. It would be interesting to ask those people, well, what's your pool difficulty? Which you can currently get from the log, but it might be interesting to show it. At least, it doesn't have to occupy a lot of the screen, but just somewhere, maybe on the accepted shares card.
I mean, yeah, it could be. That's the thing. What?
I'll make an issue for it, enhancement request issue for it, and we can think about it.
Yeah, we can think about it. That's a good idea. I mean, the biggest issue that we always face is like with new features or new implementations is we are sticking to the concept of making the Bitaxe granny proof, which means it should be as easy and as understandable for everybody, no matter how much you're technical or not. Like even your granny should be able to understand it. That's the goal that we do have with this device.
Yeah, I was thinking about that this morning because I was telling you guys earlier, I think that the Bitaxe is the Bitcoin miner for Bitcoiners. And Bitcoiners, it's kind of a way of thinking, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean you understand Bitcoin on a deep technical level, right? You can be a Bitcoiner without really like getting into the weeds on how it works. And so I think that if we're going to make a miner for Bitcoiners, it should be, easy to use without having to like just do a whole research project on how Bitcoin mining works. So anyways, just to sort of expand on that idea that we want it to be easy to use.
I mean,
and
I do agree with you on that. I just sometimes take a couple of seconds to think about it a little bit more deeply, because that's more or less exactly what we do try to achieve with this project. Like, you can basically do whatever you want with it. That's 100% aligning with what Satoshi did. Like, here's a concept. You either like it or not, go for it. If you don't believe in it, I have no time to convince you.
So this brings up another thing what I've also been thinking of, and I don't know, maybe Ben wants to talk about it, maybe not, but we have this feature called Swarm in Bitaxe, and it allows you, it's a separate tab, and it allows you, it'll scan your network for other Bitaxes, and it'll show you them in one screen. I think it's a very handy feature. A lot of people use it. It's relatively bare bones right now. There's a lot of other things that could happen. Our community member, Mars, has made a really amazing tool for administering a lot of Bitaxes at once. But the thought here was to move Swarm out of AxOS and move it into a separate app. So there wouldn't be a tab in AxOS coming, hosted by your Bitaxe anymore. It would be a separate app that you can download, and it would be a cross-platform app that you can open up on your computer, and it will provide you it'll provide the Swarm interface and hopefully even more, right? Because AxOS and the Swarm feature is written in. Here's Ben. He can tell you what I mean.
I mean, before Ben starts, I mean, basically, the idea concept is, or the concept of this idea is there. The thing is, what now needs to happen is we need to decide on that as a community, because we get a little bit of backlash on that. Plenty of people do love it and think it should stay in XOS. There are some people say, well, no, let's make XOS as bare bone as possible. Others say, well, we do have these nice features, let's implement them in there. It's a double-sided sword, because the ESP itself does have plenty of room. We could add even more features to it. There's still enough room to do that. It just adds complexity.
It adds complexity, and there's also a technical issue with having it is, in order to support, and Ben can correct me if I'm wrong here, but in order to support Swarm on AxOS, we have to enable cores, which is it's a web technology, and cores makes us susceptible to what are called CSRF attacks, which allows basically malicious websites to change the details of your Bitaxe. And so in order to thwart CSRF attacks, we have to put some special rules into the way Swarm works on Bitaxe. that makes it so some network configurations, your Bitaxe won't work at all. And so some people have run into that. People who have kind of non-standard home network setups will run into this problem. Their Bitaxe doesn't work. So there's sort of an added benefit there that if we take Swarm out of AxeOS and it's running as a separate app, and this is where, Ben, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think if we take it out, now we can disable cores on AxeOS. It'll work on all network configurations, and then that Swarm feature can sort of operate on its own as a standalone app.
Yeah, that's right. So that's currently working. People may have seen me post about it. I have the Electron app called Hash Commander. Essentially has Swarm copy pasted into it, and it is still kind of browser based. It technically like runs the Chromium window inside this app, but because we have complete control of the app, we can turn certain things on and off like cores. So unlike running it into your regular browser, we're not restricted by some of the safety limitations because they don't really apply when you're running it locally how we're intending. Maybe also do some other cool stuff, like people have been working on like auto tuning for Bitaxes. That's something that can go in there. There's a whole bunch of things that we could potentially put or roll up in an app. For people, whether it's a Bitaxe, you could even control other devices possibly. Right now, the only other thing in there besides Swarm is a Stratum proxy that I wrote. So essentially, you can connect your miner to the proxy that lives inside of this app, and then the app actually connects to like whatever server you normally connect to. And because it's all clear text, you can view all of the Stratum traffic going back and forth. So usually like closed source miners, if they're having a problem with a pool, it's very hard to debug them because they don't actually log any of the Stratum traffic. Usually they're just, let's say like error, and then that's it. It's all you get. But with this, you can see every single thing that the miner is doing in terms of talking to the pool, and you can also see what the pool is sending to the miner. So that could be useful, and there's some cool stuff you can do with that, like you can measure the difficulty that your miner is submitting to the server, and you can choose to not submit it, things like that.
I like how you put that.
You can kind of take full control of miners that otherwise you couldn't do. For example, when you connect your Ant miner up to Ant pool, you don't have any choice but to basically do what they have pre-programmed both the pool and the miner to do. So this kind of gives you a little more control over that.
So I think, this is, this app, Hash Command, is Hash Command, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Hash Command. Initially, I think it started at Hash Commander, but then I was like, let's just shorten it up. So it's now just Hash Command.
Hash Command, right? This is the like pro tool, right? This is what you get if you like have more than one Bitaxe, or you're really digging into this and you want to auto tune it potentially, or any of those sorts of things. And it kind of gets that complexity and the downsides of having that in AxeOS away from.
Yeah. The Bitaxe is for grandma. We want your grandma to get a Bitaxe, right? But we want the grandson to run AxeOS and have his crazy RPG Bitaxe Swarm and everything else, So
it's still under progress. Like, it's work in progress. There are a couple of things in it, and even though it still exists, or it's already existing on GitHub, you can get it. It requires you to do a couple of steps in order to make this application run, which are not straightforward to someone who's just used to downloading an exe file and running it. But
actually, it is that easy. If you look in the releases, there are just apps that you can just double click and run.
I haven't noticed them. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So currently, I think I'm only building them for Mac just because that's what I'm developing on. But as people start using this, I'm sure we can set up some GitHub workflows. occasionally upload an exe as well. But
Yeah, I should definitely do a workflow for the app image or DEB package.
as far as I know, there's like still no one really using it. So until people express some interest, which will probably be when we take Swarm out of AxOS. At that time, we should definitely have builds going for it. And then the other advantage too is while I built it, I also built a third-party UI library. So I exported all of basically AxOS and all its kind of look and feel into a third-party library, and then use that library in hash command. So it'll be nice to basically, if you want to change anything in the future, we just change it in one place, and that can potentially just go right downstream to both hash command and AxOS and anything else we choose to build.
So Vapes, could
So
you
that's kind of
quickly
a
make sure
feature.
to post a link to the GitHub repo because it's in bitaxe.org/hash-command? Or anybody else who's in the audience and willing to quickly look this up.
Yeah, I can do it. I should add it to the main Bitaxe.org page.
I mean, well, yeah, that's with hash command. That's an idea, and let's see how the community reacts to this idea, and depending on that, we'll see where this goes.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. I think we've had a lot of people expressing interest in making additional tools. Oh, Ben just posted it. Okay. We've had a lot of people. I think Decrypto Raccoon did a really interesting project, I thought, where he was looking at every core in the chip. For those who don't know, the chips in the Gamma have like over 1,000 cores. I think it's over 2,000 cores in a single chip. And so he made a tool that looks at each core of the chip and looks at the difficulty of the shares coming from each one. I thought that was really cool. We've seen some auto-tuning applications from a couple different people that I think are fantastic. And I would love to have that kind of thing built into hash command. So it's like we have an easy place for people to go and get this app who want to start screwing around with it. And then, like Ben said, it's developed with basically the same framework as AxOS. So anything, we can port things back and forth easily as necessary.
And also potentially, like Agent Quays pointed out, it would help him solve some issues with VPN. It could also potentially run in like a headless mode that you could put on the server, because essentially when you start up the app, it also spins off another process to actually start up like the proxy service. So in theory, you could just run that standalone and just run the whole application kind of headless.
That would be pretty sweet. That'd be pretty sweet.
Oh my goodness.
So yeah. Anyways, we're not just canceling Swarm yet. We want to phase this out, but or phase this in, I should say. But I think it'd be pretty cool.
It definitely. I mean, this could also open up other doors, as we expressed. Like, we do have, for example, a PR for the Bitaxe to implement InfluxDB, which is, for example, in the NerdX repository, which is awesome, created by PMax. Shout out to you, buddy. But with having like a hash command and the potential opportunity of switching a couple of features over to it, it would make sense to implement it over there instead of directly onto the ESP, even though it would work, depending on the use case that you do have, obviously. But
yeah, I mean, a while back we had a bunch of drama about how exactly to go about setting up overclocking and whether it should be available to everyone and like a pro mode and things like that. So that's the kind of stuff that we could just let loose and do some crazy stuff in hash command. There was a neat feature that a guy named Sandwich made a while back, and he did a big old PR to do it. And I feel bad because I was kind of like, this is too much for AxOS. But he had a very fine grain controls for changing the voltage and hash rate. I thought it was really neat. It was too much for AxOS, but this is another example of something that could just work perfectly in hash command.
Another application I was looking at too, I haven't quite figured out how to do it, or if, even if it's really possible, is do like hash rate aggregation. So you could just have a single connection to your pool, and then have all of your devices connect to hash command, and then it makes it like a single place you could change all of your devices, like what server they're pointing to, or you could do failover, or even like hash rate splitting, things like that. But
Yeah, that's a little bit of stratum magic that needs to happen there.
yeah, the big thing is actually how to redistribute the work to the miners, which I haven't quite figured out if it's even possible to do that.
I mean,
Can
There's
you
not
just
like
modify extra nonce? Isn't that?
well, so the miners, that's what they return, right? Like that's the variable they tweak is extra knots. So you can't.
but it's definitely doable because we do see, for example, nice hash or mining recrantals.
Or sorry, the other thing too. So extra nonce is also determined by the server, right? So it sends like kind of
I
like a
think
unique.
like extra nonce 2, right? We have to like reserve a part of extra nonce 2 for the proxy. And then I think there's a field where you can tell the downstream miner, like, don't roll those bytes, right? You can do less
Is there
bytes
like
for
a
the
mask
miner.
or something? It's not something that I like support in public pool or I've seen, so I don't know how to implement it. Or I don't think even like the Bitaxe would support because we don't do any of that.
One of the fields that we get over the mining.notify is a mask for extra nonce 2. So I would think the proxy pool could modify that.
But is there enough mask in there? Because like say you had 100 devices, I don't think you could find.
I think it's like 8 bytes or something.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what I'm talking about, but that was my impression, is that that's how you do this proxying, and that's probably why that's even in Stratum to begin with.
Yeah, something to figure out. I didn't immediately have the solution with me, so but that was definitely something I want to do.
I mean, you do see there are plenty of things that we could implement in the future potentially with something like that. But as I said, it's currently hard work in progress. So let's see. I still need to correct one thing that I said. I said the first town hall was on the 27th of May 2024. That's incorrect. So Vapesalot just corrected me here. Actually, the first town hall was on the 7th of January 2024.
Really?
Really? He just posted it to me. Like I uploaded it on the 8th of January and it was on the 7th.
Badass.
Dude. How
have to go
is
look at that
time
one.
flying that fast, man? We are looking at 1 hour, coming close to an end of a town hall, but I still wanted to address one question that we do have. It was a question to me and Scott from Kiwi. He asked if we can make a living from this project or if you do still have a main job. I mean, I can only talk for myself. I'm not getting anything out of that because I do still have a main job and I don't work for OSMU because it's not a company. So no, I don't. I personally don't make money out of this project.
I do work full time on it, but I also spend quite a bit of my time searching for grants to do that.
So there you go. Let's see. Do we have any other questions? Again, this is your time for asking questions. So for everybody else who's listening to this later on, if you want to take a little bit deeper into, or if you want to go deeper into this rabbit hole of open source mining, make sure to check out the Discord community under discord.gg/OSMU. And we are always happy to help out to gain a little bit more knowledge there. Apart from that, I'm quickly waiting for the 2 people who are currently typing in the chat. And after that, I do think we can close up this session. Cortic is writing, so hash command will let me view Stratum messages from closed source pools. Yes. So the stream between your mining device and the pool will be viewable. Let's say you do put up your whatever closed source miner and you hook it up to your proxy, you can see definitely what is going on between you and the pool. And Sean,
I mean, this is a pretty cool feature. I'm actually going to be doing exactly that task here next week with my Lucky Miner butt plug miner.
Sean is asking if anybody of us is going to Bitcoin Vegas. I'm not.
I'm not. I don't think Ben is either. So I guess none of us are going to Bitcoin Vegas. I bet there's a bunch of people in the chat here who are going to Bitcoin Vegas. I think there's going to be a strong Bitaxe contingent at Bitcoin Vegas. So you can check that out. There's going to be some open source mining talks on stage, I believe. Should be pretty cool. I'm headed to Oslo for the Oslo Freedom Forum put on by HRF, which unfortunately is at the exact same time as Bitcoin Vegas, but looks like Duncan will be there. Definitely look up Duncan when you get there. Good dude. BitMaker is not going, unfortunately. It's going to Prague. I heard that a bunch of you are going to Prague, right? A bunch of you are going to Prague?
Probably, I've heard that too. It's going to be an interesting event. All right.
Pancakes and guns.
All right. I do think it is time for closing this session. I do thank everybody who was or is still in the audience. It was an amazing chat with you guys. Thanks also to everybody who was on the stage and chatting with me. And
Can we do a call out, a shout out to all the legendary people that are here?
yes.
Man, look at all these. Okay. All right. I'm going to go through it real quick. All right. We have Tommy G, which I don't know you, but I'm guessing you're with IX Tech, which is awesome. Chris and Sean, shout out to that crew doing good stuff. All right. We have Raz. Is this, oh my gosh, is this Decentral Raz? If so, you're a badass. Good to see you. ComX10, Solo Satoshi, what's up, dude? Good to see you here. Yes, it is Raz. Wow, man, it's been a while. Good to have you. We got BitMaker, of course, the legendary BitMaker of Nerd Miner, Nerd Axe fame, and an all-around good dude. We have Duncan, also a legend. Good to see you. You're doing all kinds of cool stuff. You have that. What is the name, the official name for your new Gamma rear heatsink? Did you settle on one? VREX.
Nice. That's like 180 degrees apart from what I was thinking about. Oof. I love it.
There's a picture of it. Okay. That's cool. I kind of want to get one of those. I want to strap one of those on the back of my Gamma and see what it does. Going down the list here, Developer Algo, one of the most OG contributors to this space. Good to see you, buddy. Thanks for coming up on stage. Solo Satoshi, again, I'm guessing that's Matt. What's up, dude? Good to see you. I'm assuming you're already doxed as going to Bitcoin Vegas and speaking on stage. So make sure to go see his talk up on stage. Give him some support. Solo Satoshi is a big supporter of this project, and we appreciate them. OX Fox? No, we just call you Fox. Okay. Dude has been killing it lately on the ESP miner development, submitting lots of PRs, lots of good stuff. Shout out to WantClue, of course, for getting those merged. It's a lot to keep up with. Leroy Jenkins. Is that Leroy Jenkins as in the now 20-year-old like World of Warcraft meme? Which I just learned about.
You just learned about? Oh my goodness.
I'm apparently the last one to learn about this. Oh my gosh. And I learned about it like live on Pod 256. Leroy Jenkins. And it just,
wow, it's just
20 years old. So that's an OG, that's an OG meme.
It is.
Leroy Jenkins, Agent P. So Agent P has been here helping out on a bunch of cool stuff, doing some neat direct DC solar powered stuff. I hope that large solar installation in your backyard is going well. Hortic 254, you have been ever present in the OSMU and doing cool stuff. Good to see you. Bitcoin Kendall, what's up, Kendall? Good to see you. Good, thanks for hanging out with us. I hope we didn't just totally bore you. Let's see, who else we got?
I mean, what do you expect? A couple of nerds speaking.
Yeah, sorry, not sorry. And we have Ben C98. What's up, guys? From ACS for Bitcoin Touch fame. Good to see you. Good, like to see the progress on that. Of course, we have Survey Apes a lot. The legendary Survey Apes a lot. The guy who created OSMU. He named it. This is a fun fact. Survey Apes a lot named OSMU, Open Source Miners United. He also made the logo. He kicked off this whole revolution here. So mad respect to you for doing that. Also, welcome back. And yeah, that's everyone that I recognize, but definitely appreciate all of you for being here.
With that, I think it's time to say goodbye and see you back again in 2 weeks, because this one is always happening bi-weekly. And we're going to make sure that you stay up to date and are not bored out by these bunch of nerds talking shit. All right.
It's exciting nerds.
Exciting nerds. Thanks everybody for being in here, and see you back again in 2 weeks. Till then, keep hashing.